Good morning, students. In today's class, I will explain another important concept related to constructor called dynamic constructor and destructors. In our last class, we learned about copy constructor. A copy constructor is one using which the data member of one object is easily copied into another object without using assignment operator. We also learned about how elements of an array can be initialized using constructor. In today's class, we'll be learning about how dynamic initialization is done using constructor and the basic concept of destructors in C++. At the end of today's session, you'll be able to understand what is the need for dynamic initialization, what is the concept or purpose of dynamic initialization, and what is the necessity of destructors in object-oriented programming, where we need destructor, or what is the need for destructors in object-oriented programming. A dynamic constructor is one of the applications of constructor overloading. Okay, in C++, generally objects are initialized at the time of compilation, but using dynamic constructor, we can initialize an object at the time of execution or during runtime. So in C++, an object can be initialized dynamically. That is, the initial value of an object can be provided during runtime. So that such a process of providing any value to an object during runtime, we call it a dynamic initialization. Dynamic initialization can be done using constructor. And we'll illustrate how constructors are helpful in dynamic initialization with some illustrative program. So one of the advantage of dynamic initialization is we can provide various initialization format using constructor overloading. Let us study how dynamic initialization in C++ is done using constructor. You start with a simple example class area provide float area. So your class has one member data called area of float type and one constructor public area without any argument and without any statement. So this is an example for default constructor. Next, you write another constructor called area only where you pass two parameters float L comma float B. So using that values of L and B, you calculate the value for the member data area equal to length into breadth. So the purpose of that constructor is to find the area of the rectangle. You write another constructor. There also you pass two parameters only. But the difference between this constructor and the previous constructor is, in the case of this example, area float L comma float B, both the parameters are float type. But here what happens is, one parameter is float type, other parameter is int type. So here what happens is, we have multiple constructor with the same name which differ in the data type of the argument. So that is an example for constructor overloading also. So dynamic initialization is one application of constructor overloading. So here also, in this constructor also, you are finding the area only, but here you are finding the area of the circle using the formula area equal to pi into r into r. So now what happens is, your class area has two constructor, one without a parameter and two more with parameter, but the purpose of the constructor is entirely different. In the first example, you are finding the area of the rectangle. In the second constructor, we are finding the area of the circle. There you write one display function where using that display function, you display the value of the variable member data area. Close the function, close the class. So altogether, the class has only one member data called area with three functions, with four functions. Out of four functions, the first three are constructor function and the last one is a member function. The first constructor has no argument. Second, third has two parameters. The difference between second and the third one is both have two parameters only, but the data type of the argument is different. And the last one is a member function called display. Okay. Next, you start the main function area. Class name is area. Circle comma rect. So what happens is, circle is one object, rect is also one object. So we are declaring two objects called circle and rect of the class called area. Now what you do is, for the first object circle, you initiate the object like this. You initialize the object. For the object circle, you initialize the value equal to area. Constructor is area 3.14 comma 4. Here what happens is the first parameter is float type, second parameter is int type. So in that case, naturally, it will make use of this constructor area float pi comma int r. So pi value become 3.14, r value becomes 4. So it calculates the area, and the value of the area is stored in the object called circle. Now, using the same constructor area only, but you are finding now the area of the rectangle using the formula rect equal to area 4.5 comma 6.7 means here both the parameters are float type means it make use of this constructor area float L comma float B. Now what happens is L value will be 4.5 and B value will be 6.5. There it will calculate the area of the rectangle. So now what happens is we have two different objects. The initialization is done differently. So for initialization of the object, we are making use of constructors only. Both the things make use of the constructor called area only. The thing is, the initialization for both the object is done during runtime. This is an example for dynamic initialization. Now you call the display function separately with the object circle and other next time the object called rect. So circle.display means it displays the area of the circle. When you call the display function with rect, it displays the area of the rectangle. So this is a simplest example which illustrates the concept of dynamic initialization. So dynamic initialization is the process of providing some initial value to an object during runtime, that too using constructors. So it is a one well-known applications of constructor overloading also. Next. Let us another important member function in C++ is destructor. A destructor function is a complementary function for constructor. A constructor purpose is to initialize the object or allocate the memory for the object, whereas destructor function does quite the reverse. It deallocates the memory. It destroys the object. Constructor creates the object. Destroy function destroys the object. That there are some similarity between constructor and destructor. The first similarity is constructor is also a special member function. Destructor is also a special member function. Okay, and constructor also has the same name as the class name. Destructor also has the same name as the class name. Then how does the compiler differentiate whether it's a constructor or a destructor? Because both will have the same name. To differentiate a constructor from a destructor, before the destructor name, you make use of the operator, you make use of the symbol tilde mark, wave sign. So when any class name start with a tilde mark, the compiler considers it as a destructor. Without the tilde mark, it is considered as a constructor. So these are some of the similarity between constructor and destructor. There are some differences between constructor and destructor. Even though both constructor and destructors are special member function, constructor can take argument, no return value. The destructor also, no return value. The thing is, destructor cannot accept argument also. Now, to summarize, destructor is a special member function which has the same name as the class name, but it is prefixed with the tilde mark. Destructor destroys an object. Just like constructor, a destructor function also you cannot call it. When the moment you quit the program, when the moment you quit that object, automatically the destructor is executed. When the moment you create an object, constructor is executed. When the moment you leave that object, destructor function is executed. Similar to constructor, destructor also does not have any return value. The thing is, constructor at least can take argument, but destructor cannot take argument. That means constructor can be overloaded, but destructor cannot be overloaded also because it cannot take any argument. You cannot write multiple destructors. This is a simple example illustrating both constructor and destructor. Class example. So your class name is example. Private int text. It has only one member data called x of integer type. Then you write the first constructor. Example, open the parenthesis, close it, open the brace. You display one message. See out, constructor function is called. Next, close the function. Then you start the wave sign. Again, example, because destructor also has the same name as the class name. Example, see out, destructor function is executed. So destructor function is display the message. Destructor function is called. Now what happens is your class name is example. You have one constructor with the name example, another destructor with the name example only with the tilde mark, and only one private data called x. Then you display the message for using a member function called display, void display. There cout data equal to the value of the member data x, because member data is x. Now what happens is void main example e1. So there what happens is in the moment the object e1 is created, what is executed? Constructor is executed. So what happens is if the constructor for e1 is executed, means what is there in the constructor? Constructor function is called. That's the reason the output is constructor function is called. After that, you call the display function e1 dot display. Go to the display function. Since we are not given any value for x, x value will be data equal to 0 only. After that, you are quitting the main function. And the moment you leave the function, naturally, destructor function is executed. So at the time of creating an object, constructor is executed. At the time of leaving that object, because after the function statement e1 dot display, you are no more using the object called e1. That means you are leaving the object e1 means at that time the object, the destructor is executed. So destructor, what is the message? Just the message. Destructor function is called. So the output is example e1. At that time, since you are creating the object called e1, naturally constructor is executed. So the message will be constructor function is called. After that, you are calling the display function. In the display function, you are displaying the value of x. Since you are not given any initial value or any value for the x value will be data equal to 0. After that, you are leaving the main function main. That means you are quitting the program. At the time of quitting the program, naturally destructor function is executed. So the destructor function for e1 is executed. The destructor function, you have the statement, destructor function is called. So this is the simple program illustrating constructor and destructors. Some review questions based on today's topic is illustrate dynamic constructor with an example. Illustrate with an example destructor in C++. Let us take some simple multiple choice question. Dash is a member function which destroys an object. The answer is destructor or B. Number of arguments a destructor can take is 0, because a destructor cannot take argument also, and no return value 0. Correct answer is A. Difference between constructor and destructor is constructor has return type, destructor does not. No, both does not have a return type. Destructor has return type, constructor does not. That is also wrong. Constructor has argument while destructor does not have argument. That is a correct statement. And destructor has argument while constructor does not argument. That is also wrong. So the difference is constructor can take argument, destructor cannot take argument. Means the correct answer is C. Constructor and destructors are differentiated through dash symbol, hash mark, ampersand, caret sign, tilde mark. The correct answer is D, tilde mark. Dash provides value to an object during runtime. That is an example for dynamic constructor. The correct answer is C. Okay, students, in today's class, we learned two different concepts. One is dynamic constructor. It is an application of constructor overloading. It's a method of giving some initial value to the object during runtime. Other one is we also learned the purpose of destructor. Destructor is a special member function which destroys the object. Generally, destruct function is invoked only when you quit that program, only when you leave that object. If you are no more using the object with, at that time destructor function is called. Whereas the constructor function is invoked at the time of creating an object. There are some similarities between constructor and destructor. There are some differences between constructor and destructor. The examination for 1 or 2 marks, they may distinguish constructor and destructor. Difference is both are member function only. The difference is constructor can take argument, destructor cannot take argument. The other difference is constructor can be overloaded, destructor cannot be overloaded. Right, two similarity between constructor and destructor is both are member function, both does not return any value, and constructor also has the same name as the class name. Destructor also has the same name as the class name, but it is prefixed with the tilde mark. So with this is your last video lecture in Unit 2. From next class onward, I will be covering the topics in Unit 3. Anyway, I will wind up the today's class. Thank you.